After the most recent state of play, we now have confirmation that Dead or Alive is in fact alive. And thank goodness. I've always wanted to get into this series for pretty obvious reasons. But I know that there's a lot more to it, and today I wanted to take some time to learn more about it. I did see some recommendations for this video by Swifty, as well as another one by Brain Alert, so I may check out both. We'll see how I feel after this video. Also, for you guys who have been following our fighting game series, if you're wondering why I'm not doing like the updated Darkstalkers 4 video, that's because I think it would probably be best if I wait for Serby to return to like the weekly schedule on that. I do want them to get to see like some of the character designs and look at some potential things that could happen in the future. I think that'd be really fun to do together. So I'll save that for later whenever they come back. But of course, before we get into this video, please make sure to go support the original video by Swifty if you haven't seen it yet. Link to that is at the very top of the description, like always.
Get ready, fight!
Growing up, there were a few games I played that completely had an influence on my taste today. Among the various games I played, I just so happened to fall in love with fighting games, and the 3D ones in particular.
Honestly, I wish I could say that about myself. I don't even know what games defined me as a kid. I couldn't really point to a singular one. That's probably because I mostly got into gaming much later on in life, and so there wasn't really a defining one. I feel like I've kind of missed out on a childhood.
Soul Calibur was a game I loved for its exciting.
We need Soul Calibur back. We got Virtua Fighter back. We have Dead or Alive is now back. So, Soul Calibur when? Also, I've been pretty interested in checking out Soul Calibur lore as well, so I might check that out sometime soon.
And free-flowing weapons-based combat. But there was another franchise I couldn't get enough of at the time.
So silly, man. But it's Dead or Alive, right? That's what it's known for.
Today I'll take you on a journey through the entire franchise to celebrate the games I loved, and also find why the series didn't reach the levels of popularity some others had.
Yeah, really a shame.
Back in the 90s, arcades were much more popular than they are today. Many arcade cabinets running all kinds of games lit up the rooms.
When Silver went to go visit Japan to go visit like, a lot of the animation studios that he works for, he did go and see a bunch of arcades, and apparently they were pretty packed and still kind of bustling. But I'm sure that back then they were way more packed, like people flowing out of the arcade, I'm sure. I wonder if there's still any left, like anywhere in the West or here in the East. It might be one of those like novelty things that people are still trying to preserve, and small little shops here and there,
trying their best to entice anyone who walked by. Fighting games lived a good life in these arcades. And in the year of 1996, customers were introduced to a brand new 3D fighter from the newly formed division under Tecmo called Team Ninja, led by a very eccentric and outspoken man among devs, and even labeled by some as a rock star, Tomonobu Itagaki, creator and director of this new game, looking to compete with the likes of Virtua Fighter, who he himself was a fan of. In the beginning of development, the team put together an idea for a game called Polygon Fighter, and drew up concepts for quite a lot of characters who would feature in the game. A lot of them were scrapped, but a few were reworked into new characters that would make it into an evolved idea for the game Itagaki.
I always love seeing these character concepts that ended up getting scrapped. Just the idea and the thought process behind what sort of characters we want to put into our video game, and how wild they can get, and then sort of focusing it down to characters that we recognize till today.
He and his team would decide on. That game was the very first Dead or Alive.
Is that a Muay Thai fighter? Wearing the usual fit.
Dead or Alive was introduced as a game revolving around the talented Kunoichi Kasumi, who ran away from her responsibilities within the Mugen Tenshin clan in order to pursue.
Even back then, we had the jiggle physics. Let's go.
Raido, the man who crippled her older brother Hayate, and get her revenge.
Ido.
This crusade led her to join the Doatech tournament in an attempt to find him, which of course would introduce her to all the fighters who are playable in the game. The game featured 8 playable characters at the start, those being Kasumi herself, Zack, Bayman, Lei Fang, Genfu, Tina Armstrong, Jan Lee,
Hey, Tina.
and Ryu Hayabusa, a guest character from Tecmo's 1988 side-scrolling platformer Ninja Gaiden for the NES.
Okay. I was always under the impression that, like, Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive were, like, connected. I don't know if they're connected lore-wise or if it's just, like, a crossover thing. I'm sure by now they are, because I'm pretty sure we saw Ayane. Or is Ayane also just from Ninja Gaiden and then put into Dead or Alive? I guess we'll find out in this video. But yeah, I never knew Tina was also one of the OG characters. And Jen Lee I know of because of that one meme of some dude singing a cappella while playing as Jen Lee, which was absolutely hilarious. I'm sure that just by mentioning this, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
This was also the first time he was depicted in 3D.
Cool.
I didn't get the chance to play this game way back then, so I can't comment on my experience. But looking back, it seems as though the game quickly made a name for itself among players, by borrowing many aspects from Virtua Fighter, while adding its own twist to the gameplay. The most notable feature that Itagaki added to Dead or Alive was the hold system, where instead of having a dedicated guard button, the game gave you the hold button, which you could press to grab opponents' limbs as they attacked you, punishing them with a counterattack, all in the same motion. This was the main mechanic with DOA that made me fall in love with the series, as it really added to the feeling of playing as a martial artist, dancing with your opponent in a back and forth struggle for the win, with a fluid balance between defense and offense. Also, similar to what was seen in games like Virtua Fighter and Soul Blade, Dead or Alive also featured stage hazards.
Soul Blade? Was that like the very first Soul Calibur?
But instead of a ring out that ended the round, Team Ninja also decided to have the area on the outer edges of the ring explode whenever a character fell to the ground. If this explosion KO'd the player, they would be sent flying up into the air, allowing for some pretty funny victory poses.
I mean, what I do know of Dead or Alive was a shot that we saw earlier where, you know, you take a guy that you just jump off a building and just go, yeah, fuck yeah, just slam to the ground. That feels like Dead or Alive was one of the more sillier 3D fighters out there, but because it was more fantastical, I suppose, it also gave it its own unique identity. Especially among the 3D fighters. I guess Tekken also has some
Soon after,
pretty silly
in
stuff going on too.
1997, the game was ported to the Sega Saturn in Japan only, adding in a new FMV intro and several new modes, as well as the ability to unlock Raido, the final boss of the game. This version, however, suffered from a downgrade in graphics and lost the 3D modeled backgrounds from the arcade versions, which was common with arcade ports at the time, with arcade machines boasting the more powerful hardware.
That's fair. It's a bigger machine.
The PlayStation version of the game came next for the rest of the world in 1998. This version sported a new aesthetic overall, with upgraded graphics from the Saturn version, a new fighting engine, new music, and even new stages, which stayed 2D but extended infinitely, which resulted in ringouts being removed, but the stage explosions stayed. Bass, a gigantic wrestler and Tina's dad, was also introduced to this version, along with another unlockable character, Ayane, a mysterious kunoichi with a similar acrobatic fighting style to Kasumi.
So introduced in Dead or Alive? Okay.
Originally, in the first arcade version of DOA and the Saturn port, most attacks could be countered, or in other words parried, with a single press of the hold button, and loads were countered by pressing down and hold at the same time. Understandably, this was a bit too simple, and so in the PlayStation version, holds were split into two categories, offensive and defensive holds. The defensive holds were the same holds from the last two versions, but the offensive holds required different inputs using the hold button and a direction per character. as ways to deal some big damage and turn the tables on your opponent. The biggest changes, however, came with the final arcade revision released in 1998 called Dead or Alive++, where a 6-point universal hold system was introduced, which is still to this day the most complex hold system in the entire series. After playing this version of the game, it really felt like a half step between the first version of DOA and the upcoming sequel to the game, introducing an early take on a stun system, character positioning before round starts, and even tag mode, which operated more like how teams work in the King of Fire series, where you would swap to your partner only after losing a round. I spent hours playing the PS1 version of the game during the making of this video, and it didn't take long for me to tell that this was a very solid debut for a fighting game. Similar to my experience with Soul Blade before, the game really was no joke even on the regular difficulty. So many opponents in the later stages of the tournament were like final bosses.
I feel like fighting games back in the day were mostly like that. I mean, there's a reason why we have the SNK boss syndrome be a thing. But of course, you know, it's always so hard to figure out where exactly the skill level should be. And arcades, they're meant to eat up your quarters, so. To be honest with you guys, I don't think I really understand the hold system. It, completely new thing. I've never played a fighting game. I've never played a 3D fighter in general, but nothing with any system quite like that. But just from like an overview of it, without having tried it out myself, it feels like it'd be kind of a ripe situation for mind games to start happening and hard reads on your opponent. What I can say though is that it makes me very curious to try out Dead or Alive.
And then there was Raido.
Was he just better than? Oh my god!
Playing the tournament mode with every character multiple times, I unlocked a whole load of different costumes for the characters in the game, which wasn't common among many fighting games at this time. Just another aspect of DOA that helped it shine among the rest, with its focus.
Now, why in the world do we separate all of these costumes into their own little microtransaction for 6? Why did you do this to us? At least last round is coming out, which is going to include all of it, so. But man, I hope they don't do that for 7. Please don't.
On delivering great and provocative visuals on top of its exhilarating gameplay. What's funny to know is, most of the male characters had up to 5 costumes, whereas all the female characters had up to 14 depending on the version.
Hey, you know, kind of an undeniable thing in this world. Sexy sells. And also kind of my main issue with gacha games too, where it's always just the new waifu. Like, can we get an interesting male character? And that's coming from me. When I'm done with this, then you know something's wrong.
Dead or Alive also impressed with its smooth polygonal graphics at the time, but came under fire for its quote-unquote ridiculous physics when it came to female characters. As we all know, this was certainly not the end of such ideas, as we'd soon see a much larger development of this technology in later games, beginning the divide of opinions on this series' presentation. Despite this, the game was received very well, pulling in a profit of $9.2 million and selling over 161,000 copies in Japan alone. The game was so much of a success for Tecmo that it managed to save the company from complete bankruptcy, ironically keeping the company alive.
Dead or Alive, keeping the company alive? Man, and then it's such a shame that we didn't do anything with it for so long after 6. But thank goodness it's back. Maybe they just spent that entire time cooking, who knows? I feel like there's always a bit of a history though when it comes to companies like sort of dropping or ignoring the series that helped them survive throughout the years for whatever reason. But at least it seems now that a lot of companies, Japanese gaming companies, are picking up some of their older series and saying, hey, you know, there's actually people out there who want to see this again. Potentially Darkstalkers 2? Well, not 2, 4, I believe. And Soul Calibur, please?
Again, although it shared a lot of similarities with Virtua Fighter, it managed to stand on its own with the unique system mechanics Itagaki and his team implemented.
Well, yeah, you can't just be another Virtua Fighter with, you know, ridiculous physics. You actually have to have something good you know, being sexy can get a lot of people's foot into the door, but if it's just that, it's not going to work as a game. I haven't played it myself yet, but that's kind of what I've heard about Stellar Blade, is that a lot of people sort of wrote it off because, you know, the main protagonist was very attractive, and that was definitely just the main selling point. There's nothing else to it. But it's actually, legitimately, from what I've heard, a very smooth game. Just very fun to play overall.
which helped to lay the groundwork for something special for the next game. And in my opinion, they managed to expand on those ideas in the best way possible going forward.
I've heard so much about DOA 2. A lot of people consider it like the best one, right? This is
Dead
an
or Alive 2
epic
hit Japanese
cut.
arcades in the year 1999 and immediately made an impact among players and critics alike, selling over 2 million copies in total, and was named the second most successful arcade game in December of that year by the magazine Game Machine in Japan. The game was led again by the series' original creator, Tomonobu Itagaki, and with this new game, Team Ninja focused tirelessly on creating a harmonious relationship between the three main types of moves: blows, throws, and holds. Simply put, blows beat throws, throws beat holds, and holds beat blows.
Rock, paper, scissors?
It was
Okay.
a simple concept for new players to understand, with a high skill ceiling for players who wanted to take things further competitively. As well as the addition of 3D movement this time, the game expanded on the stun system introduced
Awesome.
in Dead or Alive++, where specific attacks would cause the opponent to stagger for a second or two, leaving them unable to block or perform a blow. In this state, however, the staggered player could still use a hold, giving them the opportunity to turn the tables if they guessed correctly. This again added to the depth of the game in a really fast-paced and exhilarating way.
So both expanded upon offensive options as well as defensive options. If you got God, you still have a way to come back if you guess right. And that's more just feeling out your opponent and experience with the game. Just from that simple rock, paper, scissors system, you can definitely see a lot of potential skill expression and a very high skill ceiling.
Setting DOA 2 apart from other 3D fighters at the time. In the
Damn.
upcoming console
She's
ports of
dead.
the game, the hold system was simplified from having to press a different directional input depending on whether the blow was a punch or a kick, to pressing the hold button and either up back, back, or down back to counter all respective high, middle, and low blows.
Yeah, that's right. 3D fighters have high, mid, and low.
It was just a year later, in the year 2000, that the game was released for the Sega Dreamcast, a console I hold near and dear to me for the incredible games I got to play on it. This was the version that introduced me to the series for the very first time, and I'll never forget the endless fun I had fighting against my friends and family, getting excited after witnessing each of the insane
Yeah, look at
over-the-top
that.
stage hazards present throughout the game. Gameplay aside, the game was absolutely beautiful. From the designs of the characters to the incredible multi-layered stages I just mentioned, featuring several different areas you can come across as you beat your opponent across the stage. Using the Sega Naomi arcade board allowed Team Ninja to really hone in on the details of each character model. And as for animations, Itagaki insisted on bringing in professional martial artists to perform
hell
motion
yeah.
capture, ensuring the movements of each character were as smooth and as realistic as can be.
Awesome.
I remember sitting there in sparring mode way back then, going through every character's throws and holds to see what kind of cool animation was behind each one, and I was never disappointed with what I saw. You could really tell the amount of passion
There's
and
a
care
lot of
Itagaki and
personality
his
to
team
these moves
put into
too.
making this game look and feel incredible.
And just like
Looking
the
back
raw
at it
impact
today,
of
I
that.
love the late 90s to early 2000s funky techno vibe it had. This game didn't just look good either, it sounded amazing too. In my opinion, the soundtrack in this game is one of the most memorable soundtracks in any game I have ever played, which made fight
I don't know if I've ever heard the Dead or Alive soundtrack, to be honest. I probably have, I just didn't know it was from Dead or Alive. But yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out at some point. I mean, I've been loving the Under Night In-Birth 2 soundtrack so far, so hoping to get some more fighting game OSTs in my playlist.
It's that much more exciting. Initially, the game featured 12 characters this time, which included all the characters from the first game, while introducing 4 new characters: Helena, Leon, Ein, and a secret unlockable character. The mysterious Ein was hands down my favorite character in this game, with his powerful karate moves that allowed me to launch my opponent across the stage with just a single punch. It was incredibly fun for young me at the time. I was such a big fan of high
vibration?
wizardry,
What are you talking
mainly
about?
for this one move.
What is this called? The Zuna drop? Is this where it came from?
He wasn't just a guest character in this game, as he seemed to be incorporated fully into the lore of DOA, as the main story was focused around a fellow ninja, Kasumi, and members of her clan, making it easy for him to fit in one way or another. In this game, he was on a quest to destroy the evil Tengu Bankotsubo.
Okay. Then I wonder if the lore is tied together or if it's its own separate timeline, but he's also a part of this. Because, I mean, he would fit into either series.
The final boss of this game's story, who was also the secret unlockable character. Speaking of the story, it's told solely through the arcade mode of this game, with each character having dedicated cutscenes during each of their arcade runs.
Very good, yeah.
In DOA 2, the story begins with a great leader named Fame Douglas being killed. As the main sponsor for the Dead or Alive World Combat Championships, the tournament was thought to be over, yet a second tournament was mysteriously announced by a new evil sponsor. During this time, the evil Tengu, a mythological demon from Japanese folklore named Gohyakume Bankotsubo, escaped the Tengu world and appeared to threaten all of humanity, thus setting the...
Okay. I am just wondering, how in the world does this lead to Neo Tengu joining the roster? Because I know she's in it, and I know she's a Tengu, obviously. So how crazy does the lore get?
stage for each character's journey in this game to take place, with many crossing paths with each other over personal matters.
あなたはいつもヒロインだった。
Other than the story mode, the game had survival, time attack, team battle, and tag modes, rivaling Tekken Tag Tournament at the time, which newly released with Sony's brand new console. I really loved the tag mode in this game too. It was much faster to switch out with your tag partner mid-combo, which kept the gameplay fast-paced. Similarly to how I went through each and every character's moveset to see all the amazing...
It's so cool that you can do like an alley-oop to your partner like that. There's just something so satisfying about seeing the two characters fight with each other.
animations they had. I did the same to find each and every unique tag throw animation certain pairings had in the game. These were so fun to pull off and watch mid-fight.
Yeah, it's a spectacle.
A few months after the Dreamcast version, DOA 2 was released on the PlayStation 2 as a launch title in Japan and North America. Although this initial version was rushed and was not as easy to develop as the Dreamcast version, which shared similar hardware as the arcade cabinets at the time. This caused the initial PS2 version to feature several bugs, and the game appeared to be much more aliased than the Dreamcast version, which in layman's terms meant there were a lot more jagged edges around everything.
Doesn't look
The
as
poor
good.
state of this version, due to the pressure from the higher-ups, almost made Itagaki quit developing altogether.
One day, the sales general manager came to me and said like this, "Can I borrow a copy of this so that I can play a little?" I said, "Sure, yeah, go on." And I handed him the disc, which was still under development. But the disc was never played by them. But instead, it was taken into a factory of production on that day without me knowing it.
Gotta be fucking kidding me, bro. I would quit. Oh my god. That is some... Holy... Oh... Now, obviously, I don't know how he felt about the series at the time, but, he's a creator, he's an artist, he's made something. This is his creation, this is his baby, and you just take it without my permission like this? Yeah, I would be incredibly pissed.
There were several editions of the home releases of DOA 2 that featured all kinds of additional content across them, from new costumes, stages, cutscenes, and secret characters, to even new game modes, and eventually online play for the Japanese Dreamcast version, which came in 2 different editions, one being the regular release and the other known as the limited edition. The limited edition Dreamcast version definitely was the best in my opinion, with its superior graphics and wide range of costumes. However, I do have a soft spot for my European copy of the PS2 version despite its graphical shortcomings. In other regions, this game was called DOA 2 Hardcore, and was the final version of DOA 2 released after the limited edition Dreamcast version, featuring most of the same things in that game, with its own exclusive editions like having even more costumes and extra cutscenes during story mode, with all of them running at 60 frames per second this time. The 3 exclusive stages in this version were also some of my favorites in DOA 2 in general, especially the dojo. DOA 2 Hardcore was Itagaki's second chance to make a PS2 version, after getting over the turmoil he felt after being forced to release the first version.
Yeah, I don't know how you got over that, or what sort of talks there was behind the scenes, but yeah, I hope he got a good deal out of that, because
you could really tell he meant to fix things after the amount of content he added in again. However, neither the arcade, Dreamcast, or PS2 would see the best version of the game, as later on the game would be released in its most complete state on another console, which became the new home for the Dead or Alive series for many years to come.
Winner!
Going green on
this thing
Xbox?
is really quite phenomenal. But the box itself.
After the critically acclaimed Dead or Alive 2, Team Ninja soon began development on a sequel, in hopes to capitalize on the series' newfound popularity amongst players. Around this time, Microsoft approached the studio, offering them a deal to bring Dead or Alive exclusively to their upcoming brand new console, the Xbox. Tomonobu Itagaki saw this as an excellent opportunity, as he always strived to utilize the most powerful hardware available to make the best Dead or Alive games possible.
Yeah, if it's something that allows you to create something that is closer to your vision, hell yeah, I'd take it.
The Xbox was exactly the system for that philosophy. He also stated that it was much easier to develop a game for just one console, and that the Xbox's development environment was as convenient as the Dreamcast's, with the PS2s being the most difficult. This also led to Team Ninja eventually skipping out on an arcade release for the game, to purely focus on the Xbox, which might not have been the best idea in terms of building an audience at the time.
Maybe, but I wonder if that was during the time where arcades were sort of heading out the door already. Bit of a foresight or just a happy coincidence? Or maybe I have my timeline wrong here and arcades were still the thing to market your game.
In 2001, Dead or Alive 3 was announced in Japan, but was eventually released first in North America to line up with the release of the American Xbox launch. I have very fond memories of playing Dead or Alive 3. I never owned the game or an Xbox myself, but I would always play the game at a family friend's house, where we would usually go head to head in a round robin like setting, since there were usually a lot of us around whenever I was over there. It was so cool seeing the updated graphics and costumes of characters from my dream.
Hey, not gonna lie, Swifty, kinda jelly. You have like friends and family out there who've played the fighting games with you at a round robin tournament. I mean, I really appreciate Kane going with me on the fighting game streams and our entire journey here. But I could only imagine what the experience would be like to play in person with a group of friends. I hope I get to experience that someday.
Dreamcast version of DOA 2, as well as the brand new, more expansive stages introduced in DOA 3 that the Xbox made possible. Dead or Alive
yeah.
3 introduced 4 new playable
These stage
characters,
shifts are so
with
fun.
most of the characters from DOA 2 returning, except for the secret unlockable character Tengu. These new characters were Christy, Brad Wong, Hitomi, and Hayate, who was revealed to be Ain's real identity at the end of his arcade mode run in DOA 2. This meant his moveset was changed completely to accommodate for the fact that he was a ninja of the Mugen Tenshin clan. Luckily, Ain was an unlockable character, and the only one at that for this game, but a lot of Ain's moves were given to Hitomi, as they shared a common karate background. Gameplay wise, this felt right at home moving in from DOA 2, with the game not feeling much different in general from its prequel, outside faster
Jesus,
movement
what's
speed.
happening?
The approach to this game in general was to make it easier and more accessible to newcomers, through soft changes like increased active frames on holds, immediate
And these stages are actually so cool. And the fact that in 3D Fighters you do interact with the stage itself, it's a new concept that I feel is kind of more immersive in a one-on-one fight between two characters doing like, I guess, fantastical moves against each other. There's a special appeal to it that really draws me in.
attacks on switching in tag battles, and stage falls causing KOs when players were low in health. The real changes came more so in the Japanese and European versions of the game, dubbed Dead or Alive 3.1 and 3.2 respectively. The Japanese version of the game initially had 50 new attacks in total for characters, and enhanced the CPU, along with modifying the properties of attacks, and upgrading the free-step movement to be much more evasive. This was adjusted again in the European version, scaling back the evasiveness and adjusting the balance.
You just lie on the ground.
In true DOA fashion so
Drunken
far,
Master?
these new versions came with all kinds of new costumes for each character, adding to the flair of the stellar visuals. The story mode played the same way it did in DOA 2, with the final boss this time being Genra, Ayane's foster father in his Omega form after being experimented on by the new shadow leader of the Doatech organization. This fight was a weird one, as this all had to be done from a third-person perspective, which felt so strange to do in a fighting game. I see the vision, but the execution wasn't all there in the end.
Yeah, especially if the entire story that you played so far was from, the usual 3D fighter perspective. And now we get this. I think completely shifting the gameplay for the final boss of a video game can work, but you have to do it very carefully. And I think it's something that sort of needs a lot of setup or some sort of meaning behind it outside of, this will look cool. Don't want to spoil too much about it, but Automata has a similar situation. The problem there is that Automata always sort of shifts like the type of gameplay that you're going through, and it slowly builds up into that. An example that I didn't enjoy of this was the first Devil May Cry game. The whole, I guess, what do you call it, shoot 'em up section at the end there was not it. It was not for me. I know it's a reference, but gameplay-wise, yeah, that's not what I was looking for.
It could easily be seen as a misstep to have Dead or Alive 3 as an exclusive game to the Xbox, but the game went on to be the best-selling game in the entire series so far,
There you go.
selling over
It's
1 million
Xbox.
copies in the first 5 months of its release, and 2 million copies worldwide. This was in no doubt due to the hype of the newly released Xbox and Microsoft's heavy marketing, but the game was critically acclaimed, mainly for its ease of use and very impressive graphics.
感じるんだ。
そう、理屈なんかじゃない。
そうだ。
However, it wasn't all great.
Generally,
As in
seems like a
Japan,
funny
the game
person.
didn't sell as well as Microsoft's Japanese division had hoped, only being able to move 180,000 copies out of the projected 500,000 initially.
I wonder if this was because, arcades were still a lot more popular in Japan and the Xbox didn't sell as well in Japan?
The excess copies sent over to the Japanese retailers started to pile up, causing stores to put the game on sale for as low as 300 yen, which was around $3 at the time, just a month after the game's release.
The wicked Steam sale.
Itagaki expressed how sad and frustrated this made him, as he imagined when gamers saw a game going for that cheap, it must be something terrible and not worth playing, which was very unfortunate seeing how good this game actually was.
I guess you could see it that way. I wonder if the Steam sales in general have sort of changed that perception, or maybe it's just me.
Even playing this game now, in 2024, was still plenty of fun, and holds up as an expansion of what DOA 2 started for the series. It didn't end here, however, as not long after, Team Ninja won up this game with a particular remaster that is considered by many as the best game in the entire series.
Really?
2004 was a great year, as it brought the remastered versions of the original DOA and DOA 2 to the Xbox.
Neat.
Having access to the original DOA game again was great, but the main attractions to this collection was the brand new version of Dead or Alive 2, dubbed the most complete version of the game by Itagaki himself.
What's she saying, bro? I would back away because I think she's summoning something. I think a remaster in that particular era makes a whole lot of sense considering the massive leaps in graphical fidelity that were happening at the time. Because you can very clearly see improvements being made here.
I never got the chance to try this version of Dead or Alive 2 back then, as I didn't own an Xbox, but playing this game now through my Xbox 360, I was shocked at just how amazing this game really is. It takes every single thing from Dead or Alive 2 that I love, from the fast-paced gameplay, animations, and graphics, and pushes them to the absolute limit. Even now, I'm still blown away at how good this game from 20 years ago looks in motion. Gameplay-wise, despite looking closer to DOA 3 on the outside, it very much feels like DOA 2, keeping a lot of the rules that game set, and changing back mid-holds to being back and hold for mid-punches and forward plus hold for mid-kicks. The game is noticeably much harder coming from DOA 3, with the CPU performing way more well-timed holds, forcing you to stagger your blows much more, to bait out and punish their holds with well-timed throws. I felt the increased difficulty slowly molded me into a better DOA player in general. This new version of the game was everything fans of the original versions from a few years ago would have wanted, including all the bonus content from each and every edition of the game, from arcades to the Dreamcast and PS2, all wrapped up in one beautiful new package. Hitomi from DOA 3 was also added to the roster here, which was a welcome addition. I would love to keep playing this version online, if there was some rollback reverse engineered into it, or even a remaster of this game on current consoles. But for now, I'm still having fun playing the Dreamcast version of Dead or Alive 2 on FightKit.
Now at its core, Xbox 360 is a great game console. And Itagaki-san and Tecmo have always been at the forefront of delivering what a platform can deliver and what great games can achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, Dead or Alive 4, exclusively on Xbox 360.
Well, I mean, this was a series that people seemed to be hyped for. They were like announcing it on the main stage too. I never knew that it had that sort of presence, because by the time I got around to fighting games, it was, well, dead.
In 2005, Microsoft unveiled their brand new console, the Xbox 360. And with the partnership still intact between Team Ninja and Microsoft, Dead or Alive 4 would become the first ever exclusive fighting game released on the console, and the first fighting game for the new generation. It was released a month after the console's release in Japan, and later on in 2006 for the rest of the world. Again, as we've seen with DOA games up until this point, the game was beautiful and vibrant, utilizing the power of the Xbox 360 to become the first ever fighting game to support 16:9 HD display, alongside having even more dynamic and expansive stages, introducing moving stage hazards this time, and the ability
Dinosaur? Wait. Hold up a minute. We might be cooking here.
to leap over obstacles mid-fight.
Oh shit! You just get Run over by a fucking car? We're just gonna get isekai in the middle of our fight? Are you kidding me? Oh, that must be hilarious, bro. Man, I can already imagine myself, like, playing this with Kate if we were going into this, like, super blind or whatever, and that happening randomly. Man, that would have been awesome. We gotta try this out someday, man.
I had a lot of fun playing this one, as I felt it perfectly grasped the blend of high-octane action from DOA 3 and the level of difficulty when it came to the triangle system from DOA 2. The game also introduced the bounce system, where you could use certain moves to literally bounce your opponent off the ground to continue juggling them.
I feel like that's sort of a staple with both Dead or Alive as well as Tekken. I don't think Virtua Fighter really does that, but Virtua Fighter goes for a different sort of vibe to it. Much more like grounded and realistic one. Which is also cool in its own right. But I wonder if Dead or Alive was the first one to go for the bounce mechanic? Or was it like Tekken, or was it some other series?
Juggle combos did exist in previous games, but here it became
Okay,
much more of a useful thing to pull off in a match, as you could dish out a lot of damage.
Then I wonder if it was just something that happened to be something you could do, rather than an actual feature that was developed on or developed around. Potentially something along those lines.
Lastly, interactions with opponents on the ground were also reworked here. In DOA 4, skilled players could make it hard for you to get up from the ground due to the series of attacks they could land on you if you didn't immediately wake up if you had the chance. Also, coupled with the shorter active window for holds and the introduction of unholdable moves, this made DOA 4 arguably one of the hardest games in the franchise to play, with some players also stating it was very unbalanced for competitive play. Even against the CPU I had a hard time, especially against Alpha 152, the game's final boss.
God damn.
As characters go, everyone returned from Dead or Alive 3, with a few new characters added to the roster. These new characters were La Mariposa, Elliot, and Kokoro. Unlike previous games though, you had to unlock quite a few characters, with Helena only being available after beating the story mode with every other character. This game also became the second in the franchise to feature a guest character, although not in the same way Hayabusa was integrated into the overall story.
So just a complete crossover. The Master Chief? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what we were talking about. Well, it's not Master Chief, but it is a Spartan. And okay, now it's starting to make sense. I always wondered, like, we knew that this collab sort of happened, and then people told us that it was from Dead or Alive, and I'm like, why Dead or Alive? It's because it's an Xbox exclusive series. Like, ever since the first Xbox to the Xbox 360, it's also being featured on the main stage, and Halo is kind of the game that's selling the console, so yeah, this makes a whole lot more sense.
Leave now. There's nothing up here for you but a shortcut to hell.
The guest this time was a never-before-seen Spartan from the Halo series, which makes a lot of sense with this game being exclusive to the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
That was a huge guest character to have at the time, as Halo was in the peak of its popularity back then. I remember trying this game out around the time I had a 360, and although it was a while since I had played a game from the franchise, it still gave me that nostalgic feeling with the systems from DOA 2 still coming through in one way or another from the brief time I played. Playing this game now, I'm really having fun with Hitomi, Ryu, Ain, and Kasumi, especially Kasumi, as she was a character I remembered some moves from way back in the old DOA 2 days, but never stuck with.
Hey. Bro is built different. Yo.
ほらよ。
Just show off a little bit, eh?
When it comes to story, it's hard to really describe where each character stands in it, as you're either fighting to take down Doatek with your fellow ninjas, or fighting over a juicy looking cabbage you found at a market.
I see. You got all kinds of stories here.
おじさんはいこれ負けてよあいやいや負けて負けてあ無理無理無理ねえこれいただくわ
It's kinda... What the hell?
私が先客よ
Regardless,
time to
it's
throw
an
hands.
extremely fun game that was well received all around, selling over 1 million copies by the midpoint of 2006. The game also led a pretty decent competitive scene in both Europe and North America, comprised of passionate players coming from previous games. It became the first ever DOA to be featured on the main stage at EVO, the current biggest fighting game tournament in the world, and seemed to have garnered a lot of hype at the time, even showing up on DirecTV's tournament, the Championship Gaming Series, which was broadcasted live on TV.
For Dead or Alive 4 of all games?
With online play also available at the boom of multiplayer gaming across Xbox Live with the 360, and improved netcode from DOA Ultimate, many players got to experience the exhilarating gameplay DOA 4 offered. Coupled with the beautiful visuals, this game is a pleasure to play even now. Despite the fact that I would still choose DOA 2 Ultimate as my go-to for the older games, this was yet another very solid entry to the series. Unfortunately, despite all the success, things behind the scenes at Tecmo were not going well, causing Itagaki to apparently leave the company in 2008.
Okay, what is happening here? Ninja Gaiden creator Itagaki quits Tecmo and sues. On the eve of the release of Ninja Gaiden 2 comes in out of nowhere shocker. Itagaki has said that he will quit Tecmo and sue the company's president. They report that Itagaki sent a statement to Japanese media today announcing that he had filed suit against Tecmo and its president, Yoshimi Yasuda. Why? What happened? I mean, after that last incident with him just taking the game and then going to sell it without it being finished, there's definitely going to be a lot of tension there. And he was probably just still with the company to try and keep the game alive for the sake of the fans, but well, this is all just speculation from my side. I don't know what's happening here.
And filed a lawsuit over his bonus not being paid.
Oh, there
in
you go.
2010, the lawsuit between Itagaki and Tecmo was settled, but Itagaki mentioned in a statement that the dispute was over compensation for his dismissal, meaning he was actually fired back then in 2008 before he could even leave. It's unclear who the real problem at Tecmo was during Itagaki's entire career at the company, but there were allegations on both sides. This seemed to be the point where things started to change a lot more for the series, in both the general public and with a lot of long-time DOA fans.
And that really sucks. Yeah, obviously, we don't know what office politics are happening, but real people who suffer are the fans of the game as well as, well, the game itself. And this is a really funny pause screen, not gonna lie. Perfect timing.
However, the reasons for this may not be as clear as it may seem.
Oh my. This was 5? I've heard 5 is really good.
Moving on to 2012, Dead or Alive 5 was the next game in line for the series. From the first look, it went for a more realistic aesthetic, with a darker, more gritty tone. Looking over at a lot of the early trailers for the game, Team Ninja really tried to emphasize the fighting mechanics and extremely explosive action, with brand new moves that caused short cinematic pauses mid-fight, and even crazier stage hazards and transitions.
Yeah, this is really cool.
This was the first DOA without Itagaki, led by a new producer, Yosuke Hayashi. And after seeing him play in the game, you can definitely tell, as he and the team built the engine for this game entirely from scratch. It's a weird situation here, because I wouldn't say Itagaki's absence led this game to be subpar. In fact, I and many others have great things to say about this game overall. But
that's what I've heard in general about 5. Like, if you were gonna buy one, probably buy 5 and not 6. But of course, these kind of things you have to try out for yourself and really see, because a lot of people are gonna have differing opinions on these things.
I'll come back to that later.
He's still doing the same thing? Is this just Jet Li's thing?
You.
I mean, he's meant to be Bruce Lee, right? So, it makes sense. I mean, even look at his outfit. Bruh.
According to Hayashi, the approach for this game was to tone down the sexual elements the franchise is known for, and head in a completely new direction.
Okay. I see. I have comprehension now as to what happened. Well, that's going to be a divisive topic no matter what side you fall on. That being said, I feel like it's kind of the game's identity. I think that's what a lot of people are here for. Here for initially, and then they're like, well, damn, this is actually a really good fighting game. I don't think removing stuff like that has ever gone well for any game. But once again, differing opinions.
Focusing more on each character's personality more than their beauty, in an attempt to make them more appealing to the majority of players.
And I don't mind that.
Shimbori, one of the directors of the game, and one of the original lead designers for DOA 4, also mentioned in an interview that the team was told to tone down the fan service from overseas offices, essentially backing their vision for the new game. However, this new idea would come to a crashing halt after player feedback came in from the alpha demo released with copies of Ninja Gaiden 3.
There you go.
Shimbori claimed players demanded for the busts of characters to be bigger, disappointed that the game they loved was straying away from what it was well known for. It was a surprise to him, but it goes to show where some of the players' importance lied with the series.
Yeah. Yep.
In response to the complaints, the team decided to completely do a 180 on their original plans, and went ahead with adding the fan service the fans requested in the biggest, most bodacious way the series had seen yet.
Oh my goodness.
Despite the demand for the fan service, Yosuke and the rest of the team didn't forget about making a mechanically rich fighting game that could satisfy hardcore fans of the game who gave it a try.
Yeah, no, you cannot forget about that. You have the fan service, but that doesn't mean it comes at the detriment of the core gameplay being fun. Being the thing that people come here for.
Yep, that's Akira from Virtual Fighter.
Yeah, I was gonna
In
say.
a crazy turn of events, DOA 5 featured several characters from that franchise. Those being Akira Yuki, Pai-chan, and Sarah Bryant. This was a really big thing for DOA.
Never knew they were there.
Seeing as Itagaki and probably most of the team were major fans of the series.
Yeah, I just know in 6 we have Mai Shiranui as well as Kula Diamond there as DLC. I don't think they actually mentioned that for last round, but it's probably a rights thing at that point, so they might not make it into the game.
And DOA was initially designed in very similar ways to Virtual Fighter 2 back in 1996. As cool as it was, I'm not too sure of the impact this collaboration made, as by this time, these two series were already settled as very niche fighting games, with Sega only releasing new iterations of VF5 every so often for many years.
Virtual Fighter 5. How many times has that been re-released over and over and over again, man? Thank goodness we're getting a 6, but where is it, Hopefully we hear more news on it and not just like a cutscene of somebody walking in the rain.
Mind you, Virtual Fighter 5 originally released in 2006.
God damn. It's now 2026 and we still don't have BF6. It's finally coming, but man,
also,
that's a long ass
some good news
wait.
arrived recently during the making of
There
this
you
video.
go.
Virtual Fighter had been announced to be getting a brand new game, with another new version of VF5 revealed to be coming soon too. It's great to see another 3D
World
fighting
Stage,
game,
I think?
especially one as legendary as Virtual Fighter, making its way back. As well as the 3 guest characters,
And Dead or
DOA
Alive
5
back too.
introduced 3 original characters to the game: Mila, Rig, and the boss character from the last game, Alpha 152. This brought the total of new characters to 6, the largest amount added to a new DOA game in the franchise's history. I thought all these new additions were great, offering a wide range of different fighting styles for players to have fun with, just like with the older titles. DOA 5 was also the first
It's really a combination of the sound effect, the slow-mo, and the camera too. It's just so good.
game post the Xbox partnership, with the game releasing on the PlayStation 3 as well as the Xbox 360. Somehow they managed to push the graphics even further, delivering beautifully rendered character models and stages, as well as adding things like visible sweat on characters.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can see the sweat on the characters, you can see the dirt and the grime from them fighting. You didn't see that in any of the previous games. Looks like they put in a lot of work into this one to add some more attention to detail, more immersiveness to it.
But the game did suffer slightly from a lack of color and vibrant lighting, something I did miss going into this game straight from DOA 4.
It's gonna happen when we go for a more realistic style. I think it's very hard for people to separate realistic versus like bland. Realism doesn't mean that you have to get rid of all color and just go for all grays and whatnot. And I don't really think people play video games to see boring visuals. I don't know. I'm not an artist, I'm not a game designer, I can't really speak on that. I think there are plenty of games out there though that are able to achieve like that middle ground and still remain vibrant and colorful and fun. Some may argue that stylistic is always the right choice. I think realism has its place, and I feel like it's more of a spectrum of use rather than, you know, just a yes or no question. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's also just a matter of preference too.
Cool. The game also introduced an all-new cinematic story mode, the first ever to feature in a DOA game. Continuing 2 years after the events of the story you could piece together through the endings of DOA 4, the game took us as the player through many different character-specific routes, detailing what they were all up to during the events of the 5th Dead or Alive tournament. It was nothing amazing, but I did have fun with it, especially with the funny interactions between characters through most of the campaign, and then ending off with some more serious, epic cutscenes, especially involving Kasumi and the other ninjas.
Jesus. Pretty badass.
In terms of the gameplay, DOA 5 introduced a few new interesting mechanics to shake up the gameplay from previous titles, with a very big focus on cinematics during fights to make for a more dynamic viewing experience. To start off, Power Blow was a new mechanic that exemplified the emphasis on the visuals, with the attack initiating a cool cinematic that ends with blowing your opponent away if you landed the attack with less than 50% health. Blowing your opponent across the stage was also a little different this time, as characters could now hang onto ledges instead of being completely thrown off, allowing them to avoid further damage if they anticipate how their opponent decides to throw them off.
Oh, that's really cool. We're giving the players more defensive options. Like, you're not just screwed if you get thrown off.
The critical hit system was also revamped here. Once you got your opponent to the highest amount of stun before they fell over, players could perform a critical burst, which completely dazed the opponent, removing the ability for them to even use holds.
Yeah,
this
just
new state made
slumped.
it a lot more dangerous for defending players who didn't quickly make good reads on their opponent's mix-ups often, whether through holds or just blocking correctly initially. This was a cool idea that added another layer to your options during combat. The game featured the usual game mode seen in every other game, with an improved online mode from DOA 4, albeit still not that great since it uses a delay-based netcode.
We need rollback. Rollback for 7, please? Does 6 have rollback? I think it does? I could be wrong though.
As players would soon find out, this would just be the first version of DOA 5, as Koei Tecmo released several versions of the game.
Wait, does last round for DOA 5 have rollback? If it does, I might consider it.
Time went on.
PS Vita?
The first new version was more like a port than anything, with it being a version of DOA 5 for the PlayStation Vita, Sony's brand new successor to the PSP. I've put a few hours into playing this version, and I have to say, I was really impressed. The graphics had been toned down to play on the weaker hardware, but the look and feel of the game was still very present in this smaller package. It offered everything the original game on home consoles had, but also added a first-person fighting mode, where you could use the touchscreen to attack your opponent through taps and swipes instead of buttons, while also being able to take screenshots.
Oh, okay, I see you. I respect it. But that is such a unique thing. I don't think I've ever seen any other fighting game do this. I'm sure there's like a first-person fighting game, quote-unquote, out there. You could probably say like first-person action games maybe count, but yeah, I've never seen anything quite like this before.
I wonder what that was for.
I don't know,
Moving on to 2013, an updated version of the game arrived on both the PS3 and Xbox 360 as an expansion, named Dead or Alive 5 Ultimate. Co-director Yohei Shimbori claimed that this version of the game was a reflection of all the feedback given to Team Ninja from fans all around the world. He stood true to his word, as DOA 5 Ultimate featured a massive host of changes from the original game, such as reworking the online netcode, a complete character balance overhaul,
Nice.
a brand new fighting mechanic called Power Launcher, training modes from DOA Plus.
I wonder if the power launcher was kind of based on fans' response that they wanted the launching moves from the first few games back. Because honestly, the ragdolling effect from that is super fun.
Completely reworked tag mode to allow for more competitive play and 2v2 online fights, a jukebox mode where you could play music from older
2v2
games,
online
and
fights
more
sounds
than
epic.
double the amount of costumes from the original game, with a lot of the DLC costumes being ones you can simply unlock through playing the game.
Awesome.
Over the course of
Then
the game's
how did it
lifespan,
all go so
many
wrong?
characters were added too, starting off with several new or redesigned playable characters, as well as a couple returning ones. These characters were Nyotengu,
Hey, there you go.
Phase 4, Marie Rose, Leon, and Ayn.
誰にも止められん
Interesting. Nyotengu seems to be a fairly recent addition. I always thought she was one of the OGs, and I was shocked that it was Tina of all people. We're gonna get like a lore overview on these characters.
Joining
maybe?
Hayabusa, two more
Oh, yeah, there
Ninja
she
Gaiden
is.
characters were introduced also, Momiji and Rachel. And to top it all off,
Okay, so Momiji and Rachel are Ninja Gaiden characters. I see. They're the ones. I always thought it was like Ayane. Well, really just Ayane, I guess. As you can tell, I barely know anything about Ninja Gaiden. But I did see the trailer for the new Ninja Gaiden 4, and that looked epic. I think the game's already out, and I haven't followed it much. I hope people have been enjoying it, though.
another virtual fighter guest was added, Jackie Bryan, Sarah's older brother, who you may have seen before on social media.
Oh yeah, this. I have seen this. Yeah!
Alongside this game, a free-to-play version was also released, named Dead or Alive
Core
5
Fighters?
Core Fighters.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, this was only released on the PlayStation Store at the time. This was a stripped-down version of the game with only 4 playable characters, but players were free to play most of the modes available in the full version as much as they liked, and were given the opportunity to buy specific characters they wanted to play as.
I think this is a very smart move. I'm glad that Dead or Alive has done this. I'm glad that Grand Blue also has a free version. I think getting people into fighting games initially is always going to be hard sell, especially if there's a price tag attached to it. So removing that barrier removes only just like one barrier from it, but at the very least they get to try out the game, start playing the game, start understanding maybe why fighting games are fun. And I guess from a business standpoint, also just more profitable.
As well as the option to buy the story mode separately.
In the long term, of
It was
course.
a better deal to buy the entire game, but the option was there to save money at least. And it was
Yeah.
a good way to allow people to try out DOA if they had never played it before. Speaking of money, although this game brought along a wealth of content,
Boy,
it did
there it
initiate
is.
the ongoing issue of Koei Tecmo's excessive use of microtransactions. You're not forced to buy any of it, and it is purely cosmetic, but it got quite expensive very quickly. Finally, in 2015, the last version of Dead or Alive 5, appropriately named The Last Round, was released. This version of the game released on PC and crossed over into the next generation, arriving on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, as well as returning to the PS3 and 360. The next gen and PC versions came with various graphical updates and a boost to resolution, now running at 1080p 60 frames per second.
Nice.
Team Ninja also added the Soft Engine, which was designed to bring an even softer look to the characters' bodies. Yeah, seriously.
I see.
Like with all new versions of DOA games, this version again came with a few new characters over the course of its lifespan. Honoka was a brand new DOA character, who wielded a mysterious power, on top of being able to use a lot of moves from other characters in the game.
Readily
Raido,
popular.
presumed to be
Despite
killed
being
in the
very
first
new.
Dead or Alive game, returned here as a revived cyborg, obsessed with fighting and stealing techniques.
That little slapping scene at there just kind of reminded me of like one of the newer episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm not gonna say which one specifically in case you guys haven't seen it or you're watching it, but like if you know, you know. Only thing he needed to add to that was parting his hair.
To add to the original characters, Team Ninja again
Fortunately,
went to
doesn't have
Koei
any.
Tecmo to include another guest character in their game, this time pulling over Naotora Lee from the Samurai Warrior series.
Samurai
Admittedly, I
Warriors.
knew nothing about this character, but her over-the-top
Same here.
acrobatic moves made her a fun character to watch and play around with.
That's cool.
The last DLC character here really set things alight, as Team Ninja managed to strike a deal with the people over at SNK to include one of the most iconic characters
Probably
from
mine.
the King of Fighters series, Mai Shiranui.
Yeah.
And they did an amazing job at recreating her in 3D, just for this game. Unfortunately, as of September 11th, 2019, she was no longer available to purchase, along with several other collaboration costumes and stages, including the likes of Attack on Titan, Arc System Works' main IPs, Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, and Senran Kagura, leaving late adopters to the game out of luck. With a robust technical fighting system and a massive cast of characters, this made DOA 5 Last Round yet another great game in the franchise, and to a lot of people, it's
Oh, that was interesting. Could you like select where you sent them flying towards, and then like a different object within the stage would interact with them?
considered the best. All the versions of the game combined sold over 1.5 million copies, with the free-to-play versions gaining over 12 million downloads. Although these were good numbers, especially with the free-to-play downloads, the sales showed the popularity of DOA had decreased, seeing as
Fighting games in general kind of going down, yeah.
DOA 3 sold over 2 million copies, and DOA 4 managed around 1.2 million sales, both with just a single iteration of the game.
Oh.
Despite all the good work put into the game by Team Ninja, they couldn't shake their reputation of being a fan service first game, instead of a deep fighter with other appeals on the side. Very early on with the first version, many gaming outlets and players complained about the over-sexualization of the female cast in particular.
This is why we don't listen to game journalists. And game journalists will get mad over anything. Last I remember, I think they were getting mad at like a Resident Evil character. I forget his name. Was it Nemesis? He was the dude who kept saying stars and whatnot for beating up the female main character or like chasing her down. It's like, that's the point of the game. It's a horror game. He's supposed to be, you know, the unstoppable force. And then we need to get out of there and somehow beat him by the end of the game. But you're going to be complaining about that? Really?
This wasn't new for the series as we've seen, but it seemed to be a much bigger complaint with this game. It got to the point where tournament organizers even decided to ban specific costumes from being used in their tournaments due to their revealing nature, which really didn't help the game's popularity in the FGC either.
But their core values! Where
Dead or
are the
Alive
core
by this point
values?
just wasn't taken seriously, and as a result, the depth of the game was overlooked, and it disappeared further into the niche market. But not everyone was pleased with the nature of the new mechanics introduced in DOA 5. You could call it jealousy for not being involved anymore, but this is what the original creator, Tomonobu Itagaki, had to say. It is almost impossible to attract new players with the way the game plays now. Look back at the older DOAs. When a newcomer tries out the game for the first time, his first instinct is to just press buttons randomly. But those button presses usually lead to some very visually pleasing moves, and even at some points lead to that beginner's first victory. When a new player experiences this, in his mind he would think, hey, I think I can play this game, and would start to play it more and maybe even attract more players to play it. When you compare this to the state DOA 5 is in, a newcomer has virtually no chance at all. The technical gap is so huge to the point that the game will feel too awkward, and this newcomer will never be able to play effectively or ever get a win. A game like that would never sell. This is why they thought they could overcome this by making the game more erotic and milk you loyal players all out of your money with erotic DLC. It's disgusting.
I haven't played the game. I wasn't there. I don't know the exact details behind it, but I can kind of see where he's coming from. And I think a lot of the general appeal of getting people into fighting games who are like outside of the genre or completely new to it is exactly that. You press a few buttons and really cool shit happens that you find very visually appealing, and you're like, wait a minute, maybe I can do this. That is very true. That is kind of how I got into fighting games. That is how I've been trying to get my friends into fighting games, and what has been like the main thing for them was like the characters that they find cute, attractive, or just really fun to play. And then being able to pull off that super cool move that they saw, somebody else do, or I do whenever I try to demo the character for them. Doing it consistently is like such a sense of accomplishment because, it's cool, it's visually appealing. But if the gap to get there is too high, and especially if you go into an online mode where basically everybody is like an OG fan who knows these mechanics and has legacy skills, they're just going to beat you up over and over and over again before you even get to do any of these moves, then yeah. But you can't really say that's a problem for Dead or Alive only. I think that's a problem for the genre as a whole. And trying to find that balance, that new player progression, or a way to introduce new people into it is always going to be tough. I remember doing a video on that specific subject, and a lot of people had some very strong opinions about it. It's very differing opinions too. But I think especially nowadays, a lot of the perspective on fighting games has shifted, and it almost feels like fighting games are starting to rise back up again. Clearly, something is being done correctly.
I don't believe newer players have no chance at all to catch up to others in DOA 5, as matches flow in a way that make you feel like you can do something eventually, without having to stop completely and lab how certain things work in order to even put up a challenge, encouraging a natural growth overall from the player, even if the game is hard.
Yeah, that's fair.
I definitely agree with his take on the over-tuning of the erotic nature of the game and DLC practices though. And it's
Yeah, the DLC practices, please don't carry that over to 7, please, for the love of God. I know it's a company and they're trying to milk as much cash as they possibly can, but like, have some faith. If you put your trust in the players, maybe they'll buy the game for the sake of the fact that you're not selling microtransactions everywhere. Like, genuinely, it is such a massive turnoff when you go to a Steam game and then you look down at the DLCs and there's like a million things you can buy. Really? Come on. Almost feels like you're not really getting the full experience because of that. And at least for me, like, some of the only acceptable DLC that I buy for fighting games is like the season passes and the character passes, because like you get a whole new ass character with a completely new moveset and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that's worth it. The costumes? Not so much. A couple here and there maybe, but like not everything, everywhere, all at once.
crazy because I think there are so many cool, fun, and reasonably sexy costumes packed into this game. Itagaki himself made steps to regulate the erotic nature of DOA, leading him to create a completely different series of games under the franchise, inadvertently dividing the fanbase, or possibly creating a new one altogether. This takes us over a decade back in time from this point, to 2004, where it all began.
The other side of DOA.
If you aren't already aware, fighters weren't the only genre of games released under this franchise.
Yeah.
In 2004, on the original Xbox,
there you go.
Dead or Alive Extreme was released, which was a game centered entirely around playing minigames on the beach with the entire female cast of Dead or Alive 3. I would like to read another quote from Itagaki made in 2015, as I think it perfectly encapsulates why he decided to make this series. Everybody's a little perverted. Even I'm a little perverted. But it was...
I mean, it's a natural human instinct.
For that very reason, I created Dead or Alive Extreme, in order to target the people who wanted something a little bit more casual and sexy, but at the same time, keeping that tone separate from the fighting game that is DOA. As Itagaki said, this game was purely made for fan service, extending what was in the fighting games into something completely new, with the license to be a bit more excessive, hence the name Extreme.
I see.
I never personally bought or engaged in these Extreme games, as I only cared for the amazing fighting game. And although I didn't come to the game looking for it initially, I think the fighting games have more than enough fan service.
I would think so too. And now with this added context, the whole, the game is selling you erotic costumes, trying to milk you of your money, but then you go to work on Extreme Volleyball. I don't know about that one, Chief. I mean, we're all hypocrites at the end of the day. It's just accept it. We are. And that's life. But yeah, it doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence in his initial statements on DOA 5.
Despite this though, Extreme made a lot of money for the series, and I'm
But
sure
yeah,
in one way or another,
it
it helped
sells.
retain Tecmo's interest in making sequels for both sides of the franchise.
Fortunately, I believe this is going to lead into Venus Vacation and the whole gacha hell that Dead or Alive is currently in and about to get out of, thankfully. But if it kept the series alive, then I guess there was something good from it.
So for that, these games are fine by me.
そうね。こうなったらバッチリ楽しまなくちゃ。よろしくね。
I went back and tried the first two games on the original Xbox and the 360, and I would be lying if I said I didn't have fun with them both. The volleyball matches the whole game revolved around were actually really challenging at first, and got fun once I got the hang of what types of attacks and receives to use, and timings for powerful spikes. Maybe that's just the competitive side of me that wouldn't stop until I started winning, but I honestly felt like the minigame was decently made. The rest of the game had you going around the island, earning money in various different ways, in order to buy gifts to give the other girls in an attempt to convince them to be your volleyball partner. Outside of some ridiculous scenes, I'd say this was a pretty decent gameplay loop to mess around with. Don't get me started on the casino too, that was a slippery slope.
Oh yeah, always is, man.
To compare, I tried out the trial version of Extreme 3 on the Nintendo Switch, which for the most part was an upgrade from everything in the original, with some new minigames thrown in there that really lent into the fan servicey concept of the game. They even added Owner Mode, which was a mode where you would act as the owner of the island to essentially watch over and take pictures of the girls while they're doing various things. In my opinion, that additional mode took the game from some harmless fun, similar to the original, to a level of perversion I'm not interested in.
Hey, not gonna yuck anyone else's yums. I
The
too
volleyball
played
game
Venus
was still as
Vacation.
fun as always though.
Didn't spend any money
But
on it
apparently
though.
Extreme 3 left out the jet ski minigame that people were fans of from the second game on the Xbox 360, which was a shame.
That's unfortunate.
It was something the original creator Itagaki himself was very proud of making too. But of course, with his departure of the company after DOA 4, a new team took over both the fighting games and the Extreme series. And this game was another example on how quickly things can change after a lead producer of the series leaves.
よかったら
Damn,
一緒に遊びませんか？
I see.
そうじゃのう。
So that's how it all
わ
went
らわと
down.
組もうなど図が高いわ。ひどい。
The most shocking revelation to me though, was that the Extreme series is very much alive, with the most up-to-date version
there it
being
is.
a free-to-play live service gacha game called.
The volleyball part of this, though, is not very interactive. Legitimately, because it's a gacha game, it's always just numbers. Do you have the latest swimsuit? If you don't, then, well, rest in peace.
Dead or Alive Extreme Venus Vacation, only available in Asia. You can find up to 3,000 people playing this game on any given day on PC. Light years ahead of the amount of people playing Dead or Alive 5 online, and probably every other DOA game combined.
Also, is it only available in Asia? I mean, it's on Steam for me, but I am living in Asia, so, I don't know.
During the making of this video, a new Venus Vacation game was also announced, called Venus Vacation Prism.
I have it wishlisted. I haven't tried it out yet. It looks kind of interesting, but it's like a visual novel thing, and I'm not really that into them, with a few exceptions.
Again, only to be released in Japan and the rest of Asia. These games created an entirely new fandom for the Dead or Alive franchise, and where some players adopted both the fighting game and this one together, a lot of players sat on either side of the fence.
やったやりました。
I want to enjoy the fighting game side more. It's just that the fighting game side has been dead for so long. So I'm very thankful that it's back. And the girls aren't just, here for fan service anymore.
The Extreme series isn't the only spin-off title from Dead or Alive that exists though, as there were several other games to capitalize on some of the success of the fighting games. Dead or Alive Dimensions was one of those titles, released on the 3DS a few years after the release of DOA 4. This game ran on similar framework to DOA 4, and had a unique mechanic involving the touchscreen, where you could press on moves and strings from your character's move list and they would do the exact command.
That's insane,
It's my first
bro.
time seeing this mechanic, and it seems like a good way to help casual players use a wide range of attacks in a fight, without having to memorize much of anything.
You gotta just scroll pretty quickly.
怒らせてしまいました。
what really impressed me about this game,
I guess how else would you
was
play
a
it though?
surprising
On
amount
this.
of content, to the point where I would consider this a pseudo mainline title in the series. The story mode chronicles the events that happened from the first DOA all the way to DOA 4, filling in the gaps in the story within those games to better tie everything together in a more cinematic fashion. This is genuinely the best way to experience the story of all 4 games, and for people new to this series, it also teaches the concepts of Dead or Alive's core gameplay along the way. On top of the story mode, it featured all the modes seen in other mainline DOA games, with a unique twist to the tag mode, having your tag partner controlled by AI instead, where you could choose to tag yourself in or react to timely button prompts to perform your tag throws. It even featured online battles, although I'm not too sure how the netcode would have held up. Regardless, this is a must play for anyone who casually wanted to get into DOA through the story, and for current fans who want to see some of their favorite characters from the series get even more shine. Next up, there was Dead or Alive Online, a Microsoft exclusive port of Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate, originally released as a beta in China in 2008, but never saw the light of day in the West after being closed down completely in 2010.
Some pepperonis.
There was also a blackjack game for iOS released in 2009, which was an extension of the blackjack minigame from the Extreme games, but this game didn't last long, as its sales were halted just a year later.
I'm not
Speaking of
surprised.
Extreme, Dead or Alive Paradise was released on the PSP, being a direct port of the Xbox 360 game, DOA Extreme 2. And lastly, another Chinese-made game,
What is
Dead or Alive
this?
5 Infinite, and its extremely similar Hong Kong counterpart, Dead or Alive 5M, were turn-based RPGs released on mobile in those countries alone. I can't say much about this
RPG,
one,
quote
but
unquote.
it doesn't look like something I'd be very interested to try.
Yeah, no. Same, bro.
Believe it or not, there was even a live-action movie made
A
based
what?
off the game. As for my thoughts on it,
Never
well,
heard of this.
It certainly was a movie, but it did
Okay, I wonder if it's on par with the King of Fighters movie, because that was an absolute disaster.
make me laugh quite a few times. Probably wasn't the intention, but it gets a point for that at least.
You know, if you're gonna be bad, at least be bad to the point where it's funny.
As well as the
this Fatal
spin-offs in the
Frame?
series, there have been a great amount of crossovers with the franchise, usually adding Dead or Alive characters to particular games from Koei Tecmo's large library of IPs. These came in the form of either playable characters like Kasumi, Ayane, Hayabusa and Co. in Dynasty Warriors and Warriors Orochi games, or in ancient Nyotengu and ancestors of Ryu Hayabusa appearing as secret bosses in Neo 2. Looking
Cool.
over it all, there really has been a lot of crossovers, as you can see, on both console and mobile games, with one of the biggest being a few of the DOA girls featuring in the very popular gacha game Azur Lane, well known for its very particular character designs and artwork.
I think I was there
Finally,
for that collab.
the most
Haven't played
notable
Azur Lane
crossover,
since
of
though.
course, was with the rebooted Ninja Gaiden series, which released periodically alongside the Dead or Alive series, and was directed by Tomonobu Itagaki up until Ninja Gaiden 2. As I mentioned earlier, Ryu was initially a guest character in Dead or Alive at the beginning, but became a mainstay character immediately after, with Itagaki constantly crossing over characters between the two games.
Okay,
Ayane was
gotcha.
introduced to Ninja Gaiden through the remastered version of the game, Ninja Gaiden Sigma, as a messenger to help guide Ryu. Later on in Dead or Alive 5, we'd see the introduction of Rachel and Momiji, friends of Ryu's who first appeared in Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword respectively.
Interesting. So yeah, initially guessed, but then basically connected universe at this point.
For the most part, I strongly feel like the mainline games have been great up until this point, and the sales of each of the titles so far even prove people have enjoyed them all to some degree. However, that would
still
all
separate
change going
timeline.
into the most recent title, Dead or Alive 6.
Okay, what happened? Disappointment and discourse. Here we go.
In 2019, Team Ninja released their brand new entry to the franchise, this time in hopes to branch out to new audiences. The new director and producer of the game at the time, Yohei Shimbori, claimed the concept of the game this time was intense fighting entertainment, which on the outside seemed to be the case, with the toned down fan service of the female character designs, immediately shown through the poster.
Okay, there you go. Once again, genuinely, I think maybe the main issue here was us listening to too many game journalists.
Of the game, Kasumi.
I think this outfit is pretty cool though.
I remember being so excited
yeah.
to see another DOA game that had a chance to blow up amongst the soft resurgence of fighting games at the time, especially with Tekken 7 doing extremely well, shining a spotlight on 3D fighting games.
Yeah, Tekken was doing numbers back then.
I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Nowadays, not so much. Hopefully they also make a comeback though.
The game was, and still is, beautiful. And although it didn't leap too far ahead of Dead or Alive 5 Last Round in terms of graphical fidelity and animations, the brighter lighting and more vibrant colors really made the game pop next to its predecessor. And it's still a very pretty game to look at today, especially with the PC version. That being said though, I still mostly prefer the character models in DOA 5 Last Round.
I've heard the general opinion being, yeah, that they look best in 5. I think it's because of the more softer look. I think for 6, some of the lighting makes them look very plasticky.
The game also featured a very robust tutorial, better than any other DOA game before it, helping players understand the mechanics of DOA in a much easier way. The new mode DOA Quest
I should try it out
also
someday.
acts like a tutorial, through giving players specific objectives during fights.
Also, yeah, maybe I should try 5 too. So many things to play.
2 brand new DOA characters, Diego and Nico, were introduced at the start of the game. They both didn't appeal to me much from a design standpoint, but Diego was said to be designed as someone who could appeal to Western audiences. Over time, more characters were released as paid DLC, mainly returning from DOA 5, such as Phase 4, Momiji, Nyotengu, Rachel, and Mai Shiranui, who is now only available in this game. Momiji ended up being the character I gravitated towards most in this game, as well as Lei Fang later on.
Diamond as well.
This time, Team Ninja struck another deal with SNK and brought another friend to accompany Mai, that being Kula Diamond, another popular character from the KOF series.
And hey, if it takes Kula Diamond to convince Kane to try out some DOA, then so be it. One of his favorite characters from KOF.
As for the story, it's more of what was in Dead or Alive 5, but this time split into separate timelines for most of the characters. It's not much of a big deal, but I did prefer the way things were structured in the last game more.
We only did like the fighting game bullshit timeline stuff in 6. I was wondering that about the previous games, but it seemed more like how he was describing it was that everybody had their own story going on, and there was the one main story happening, but we were just following what they were doing while other people were doing their thing. I actually kind of prefer that, but I suppose it really comes down more to how it's written, how it's presented, and how engaging it is.
As for the storyline itself, it was the same structure from the last, very silly with a bunch of fun, ridiculous interactions between characters, and then ending off with a bigger, more serious fight. The other downside to this game's story mode was its final boss, Raido, which wasn't interesting outside of him making the screen go black and reappearing anywhere on the stage. The story also ended so abruptly, leaving so many questions unanswered.
And then, for the longest time, we had no news of a 7. That's it?
Lastly, for the final DLC character before things went south, Tamaki was introduced, who was the first character to be crossed over from the Extreme series over to the fighting game. Recently I've been trying to play her, but she really never stuck the landing with me, especially in a game where there's such a variety of crazy, unique fighting styles. Very soon after the game released, Koei Tecmo announced a world tour for the game, backing their claims of making DOA more palatable to the esports scene, putting their money behind such a large-scale event. Looking at things from this angle, you would think the future was bright for Dead or Alive 6, but soon after players began playing the game, that would very quickly change.
Hey, what was the issue?
After starting up the game, it was clear to see that the game didn't have the largest of budgets for development, having even less characters than DOA 5 at launch. When it comes to the gameplay, the game was immediately met by criticism from long-term fans of the series, due to the introduction of a meter system and what that ended up entailing. The two major issues
Oh. I mean, all the fighting games I've played always had a meter system. So does that mean DOA never did until 6? I guess thinking back on it, I never noticed a bar like that underneath everybody's health bar.
I feel the new mechanics brought were the break hold system and the meter burn step dodge attack. The first was a move that let you hold any and all holdable moves by just tapping back on R1. This completely took out the strategy behind analyzing your opponent's habits and making the right call to turn the tide of the fight.
I was gonna say exactly that. So we introduced a really complex system, a rock, paper, scissors system with a lot of skill expression, and then we decided to remove all that. I guess that was because, we want to introduce new people to the game, and so we're gonna simplify things. But by doing so, you then alienate your hardcore audience.
Which was present in every single DOA game up until this point. I didn't like this specifically for that reason, as it made interactions a lot more shallow. The second was the step dodge attack you could spend 1 bar of meter to use, making your character slip past any of your opponent's attacks and hitting them with a counter that sent them flying. Yet another mechanic that let players completely ignore any pressure enforced by the opponent, again dumbing down the interactions between two players.
Yeah, with all the previous games described, there are so many things you could do on both the offense and the defense, and that's sort of the fun part about fighting games, right? Is learning your opponent, doing hard reads, figuring them out, and then pulling off a move that you knew that they were going to do, and so you countered with your move. That's awesome. It's a great feeling. And you're not really going to get that with a system like this, if it is exactly how he's describing it.
I believe their goal for accessibility should be to introduce mechanics that help players get started, and encourage them to learn more about the game to optimize their play.
Yeah.
But in DOA 6, these new mechanics they introduced actively stop players from having to learn more about the game, making it a more shallow title compared to its predecessors. These are only my opinions though, as there seem to be a devout few who really do enjoy this game more than the others.
Hey, you like what you like?
Despite my feelings on the mechanics, I still had some fun back then playing around with this game casually, and even during the making of this video, I spent hours and hours playing online with others. It's not as deep as previous titles, and dropped out cool features like cliffhangers from DOA 5, but the look and feel of the game still offers some level of satisfaction despite the shortcomings. What isn't satisfying, however, is everything else the game had to offer on top of the watered down gameplay, which I believe was the combination that ultimately killed it in the eyes of many long-term fans, and anyone who had some slight interest in playing the game.
Like Rose.
Characters weren't too much of an issue, as I think it would be unfair to compare DOA 6's initial roster to DOA 5's third major revision, but everything else was inexcusable. The online mode in the beginning had no lobby system, the stages weren't as interactive and multi-layered as previous titles, tag team modes were removed, the costume unlock system was turned into an unnecessarily long grind, and the game's microtransaction scheme following on from DOA 5 was even more diabolical.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. I think if you bought like every single DLC, it would be an absurd amount. Now, of course, you're not meant to buy every single DLC because, some are sold singularly and others are sold in packs, and then others are sold with the character, and then others are sold as a special deal. And this is just a predatory practice to kind of get you to waste your money. Potentially buy things that you don't want to buy because, it's a good deal. I'd be crazy not to spend an extra $100 here. And why do companies have to be this way? Please, you guys are cooking, and I hope you're cooking something that isn't this again. Just get the shit out of here, get what people enjoyed about Dead or Alive back in 7, and I think then we'll have a future.
DOA 5 Last Round benefited heavily from being able to include content from previous revisions, and while DOA 6 does include costumes from other games as unlockables, it wasn't nearly as much as you can get from the previous game. This leads into DOA 6's DLC, which honestly doesn't even offer costumes that were as cool as the ones you
Yeah.
could get in 5. Yet all the season passes and costume packs were even more expensive, being anywhere up to $90 each, more than the entire game itself.
Holy.
Team Ninja introduced some degree of character customization, which was cool, but you even had to pay every time you wanted to simply change the color of your character's hair, something you can do for free in other games.
Soul Calibur?
I think it goes without saying that price-wise this was all a big issue, but you were still able to buy costumes singularly for the character you liked most and not have to buy into the egregious packs. I'm not a fan of it all, but it is important to mention that none of these purchases are compulsory and you can simply play and enjoy the game without having.
You can. But the fact that it exists in the first place is an issue. And it's kind of a turn off for a lot of people. I wish companies would stop doing this. Like, yes, the point stands, it's not necessary. None of this is necessary. You can get the base game on sale for really damn cheap. But it feels bad, man.
To buy anything else. And the DLC characters themselves were reasonably priced at the very least in my opinion. Lastly, the big topic of discussion for this game at the time was of course the fan service, and lack thereof for some people. I think the actual problem here was Team Ninja's flip-flop approach to it all. They claimed the game would be more focused on having an image that is more acceptable by modern standards, committing to dialing back the provocative costumes and putting more attention on hardcore gameplay, similar to the early promise of DOA 5. But very soon after, they turned around and tried to include it all in the same way anyway after some backlash, with them even setting up an erotic showcase stage at EVO Japan, which was embarrassingly shut down mid-show due to the whole thing not being part of EVO's core
values.
Neither the fans who wanted all the fan service back from DOA 5, or the more competitive focused players who wanted DOA to feature fun, fair and engaging gameplay mechanics were satisfied, as both sets of players were sold a lie in one way or another, leaving the game in limbo with no strong core audience.
You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't win everything. You have to make a game for somebody, or else you're not going to sell a game. So disappointing that this is how it went down. I hope they learned their lesson from this.
That is what killed the game and heavily damaged the reputation of the series further, in my opinion. It was a complete mess, and the game ceased to have any support little after a year of its release. Director Yohei Shimbori left the company not so long after, having spent 15 long years there. That wasn't the end of Shimbori though, as he ended up joining the Tekken 8 team at Bandai Namco, as a producer and assistant director. Really explains the new stage transitions going on in the game now.
They're pretty cool too. And actually, now that he says that, you're right. The stage transitions, they're kind of like the old Dead or Alive games. Yeah, exactly that.
Koei Tecmo did not release the sales figures for the game, but it's safe to say it was a failure. The first in the entire series sales-wise, and it's no surprise to see why. So, at the end of it all, what could happen next? How could Dead or Alive come back with a large impact, like it once did with its earlier titles? It's hard to say exactly what could change Koei Tecmo's fortunes with the series, but one thing that should be heavily considered is the marketability of the game. Katsuhiro Harada, the lead director of Tekken, made a very insightful tweet about the nature of what makes fighting games successful. And he mentioned the fact that things like having great mechanics within the game don't help as much nowadays in the console market, which seems to be very true, seeing as so many games as well as DOA have had such well-made entries but still fell short in the long run.
You'll enjoy this, trust me.
To start off, I don't think the series needs to completely rid itself of its fan service to make everyone happy.
Kind of its
I
identity.
really don't think that would work anyway. What I do think needs to be tweaked, however, is the degree of fan service and how it's implemented in the game. You can see a better balance of gameplay and fan service in DOA 1 to 4, and in many other fighting games.
This place shall be your grave.
I mean, yeah.
The extreme fan service should be reserved for the extreme games, in my opinion, as that really is the whole purpose of those games anyway. Koei have the audience already as long as they keep making the extreme games, and they shouldn't worry too much about them not crossing into the fighting games after a few changes, as clearly most of them don't play anyway.
Yeah, I think it is really just two completely different audiences. There's obviously going to be some carryover, but it's not going to be the majority of people. And it's weird to think that companies don't realize this. Oftentimes, for whatever reason, they always think that everybody who is like a fan of a series is going to buy the next game because, you know, it's some sort of obligation or blood pact. That'd be the same thing as me expecting everybody, like all 24,000 of my subscribers to join my streams. Like most of you guys who watch these videos probably don't even watch the live streams because, well, it's not something that they're into, and that's fine. That's your time. And companies need to understand that it's our money. We're going to buy what we want to buy, and it might not be the same thing, and not all of your entire IP is going to be what we're interested in. So don't appeal to both sides, appeal to the one side that you're trying to sell it to.
This isn't a complete solution to DOA's lack of popularity among the larger audience though, but I don't think the game necessarily has to be the most popular game out there. It just needs to hold a loyal, niche fighting game audience, while attracting a few others outside of that with fun game modes outside of fighting.
There are fans of 3D fighters in general, and I think a lot of people will be playing multiple different games depending on what's currently happening and what new content is being released. So being within that circle, I think, is going to be enough. Like, we just need an entry there. It can't just be Tekken.
Alongside a robust and stable online experience. This may be a major stretch, but I think adding in a side story mode that played similar to Ninja Gaiden would be a nice pull to players who are outside the DOA fanbase. Similar to Tekken's Tekken Force, Street Fighter 6's World Tour
happening there?
And Soul Calibur's role-playing like approach to story mode.
Oh yeah, this. I think this is Soul Calibur 2. This is actually really cool. I tried out a little bit of it because it's on Nintendo Switch Online, and yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
Could be something that would go down very well with players. I for one would love to run around with the ninjas completing short missions through hack and slash gameplay when I want a break from playing ranked matches. Sure, some players won't bother, but the more content outside the usual the game has, the more of an appeal it would have to other players.
Yeah, I mean, look at Grand Blue too. It's not like everybody plays the Fall Guys mode or the story mode, which is more like a side-scroller thing. But it's there for people who want those things, to enjoy those things, to do something else except play ranked online.
The concept of adding extra content outside the multiplayer experience to appeal to larger audiences outside fighting game fans is funny in this day and age though, as many of the most popular multiplayer games don't have much content in terms of varying game modes, and still manage to do extremely well. But they do offer much more frequent updates in the form of ranked resets, skins, characters and more. This is something fighting games are only now trying to adopt, although not that successfully, so we'll have to see how it goes. Also, I think free-to-play versions of fighting games should be explored more to really decrease the barrier of entry.
Yes, I do believe so. I think that should be a thing. As I said earlier, the barrier to entry is the price tag. If you remove that, you can get more people into the game, thus resulting in more fighting game fans and more people to buy your games. It is kind of unfortunate that 2XKO is here. I think a lot of people had high hopes for it. I don't think it's gonna die. Not necessarily dead. I don't know much about their current situation, and there's a lot of varying opinions on it. I'm just, as an Akali main, not very happy with Akali's design in 2XKO. Not happy at all. I think some people enjoy it, sure. Whatever your preferences are, that's not Akali to me. And genuinely, I thought I'd be more into 2XKO considering how long of a history I've had with playing League of Legends and all the characters that I know and love and enjoy. Probably going to be in there at some point, but I don't know. There's something about it that doesn't really appeal to me. And I can't really put my finger on what.
As for the presentation of the game, outside the fan service, I don't think there would be an issue with the next game. Team Ninja have done great work off the back of what Itagaki started with the older games, carrying on the tradition of DOA having some of the best graphics you'll see in a fighting game. All I ask is for them to show that off even more, with a wider variety of multi-layered stages.
That would be cool. We need more of this.
Once people are pulled in to purchase the game, of course the feel of it all is the next important step to keep them playing. For this aspect, I think it's really simple. Focus on what makes DOA, DOA. What springs to mind first is the hold system. I think break holds should be removed, as they didn't add much fun to the natural flow of combat. By giving players a get out of jail free card, it lessened the importance of paying close attention to the habits
It's not
of your
fun for
opponents to
anybody.
make amazing reads.
Oops, the fun part about fighting games, man.
These are just my ideas for new things that could be added, and I'd be more than happy with the removal of meter mechanics completely too. All the previous titles before 6 have proved the design of the game is still fun without it. Then again, the business model for a lot of these games is all about adding more and more things to each title that set them apart from the previous ones. And usually, that means adding some kind of meter mechanic to the game if it didn't previously have one. With that being said though, since that has happened to a lot of games recently, maybe making a game without meter mechanics could be more refreshing than ever.
I mean, yeah. Funnily enough, it just circles back. When everybody is doing it, then it's not special anymore.
In the end, despite the ups and downs with the series, and the state it's in today, Dead or Alive remains as one of my favorite fighting game series of all time, and I only wish the best for the series moving forward. Things may be extremely quiet now, or even dead in some people's eyes, but there are still many people out there keeping the name of this franchise alive, so it can never be forgotten.
Don't worry. Swifty in the past, I'm sure you're really happy with the announcement. Or I hope you are. Yeah, and please go and subscribe to Swifty. This video was amazing. Such an interesting shift in direction, but I can also understand that a lot of this was due to corporate bullshit. Especially with, the game being taken from Izagaki and now it being in the current state that it is. Not going to make any more comments on that because, office politics and who knows what actually happened. But regardless, the microtransaction situation, the whole fan service, no fan service, but fan service, I don't know. It's really flip-floppy. I don't think anybody enjoys flip-floppy. Make a game for an audience, appeal to that audience, and sell it to them. It's really not that hard. I think most people who've sold products or have tried to sell anything at all in this world could probably tell you that exact thing. But hey, companies be companies. I hope the best for Dead or Alive 7. I hope that they've learned from all the mistakes that they made with previous entries, and this one comes out to be an absolute banger and revitalize the series. Bring it back to where it used to be, as one of the big 3D fighters. And also, not gonna lie, I saw this video of the rise and fall of Soul Calibur. I already had that on my list of things to check out. Did not realize it was also from Swifty, so I might check that one out too. I too want to play Soul Calibur. That game looks amazing, and I don't really know about weapon-based fighters, so that's going to be a new experience as well. But anyways, dudes, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Later, dudes.